Hello, it's Mark from Lightmap, and we're going to light this front view of the watch with Cinema 4D and Redshift with HDR Light Studio. So I've got a reference image here, and this is of this watch, and we can see, looking at the lighting, it appears like we've got two large panels, and there's like a graduation of light coming from the bottom of this panel. There's a graduation here, and then we can see a highlight on this bezel here. That's also what you can see in the strap, and then there's a highlight up here that you can see in the bezel there. So this is the kind of look we're going for. There's another example image. Again, that looks like there's these two large panels. So let's try and get that effect with HDR Light Studio. So we'll close the window and we will create a new project for HDR Light Studio and then press start. Great, so this interface layout is effectively the same as the standalone, and then I've opened the render view Cinema 4D Redshift and dragged and dropped that on top of the other render view. So I'm just going to rearrange this a little bit to make it more of a comfortable layout. Okay, so let's press the play button, and this will start Redshift interactive rendering. There we go, and now it is streaming its render from Cinema 4D and Redshift into HDR Light Studio's interface, so we've got everything we need to do the lighting. So I'll just turn down the brightness of this background, and then let's go and get a big softbox and drag and drop that onto the view to position it on the watch face. And we'll drag the handle down here, and then we'll just click here, and then we'll make the width and the height as big as possible and make that quite bright. Now, the issue that we can see here is that the light is reflecting in the front of the watch face, but it isn't reaching around to the sides like we were expecting. And I've made this panel as big as you can. So if we make a soft round light and we just click on the bezel here, and we make another soft round light and we click on the bezel here, you can see how far we'd have to make the light expand until it created the effect on the bezel. So we're going to have to take a different approach to lighting this shot. So we'll select all of those lights and we'll delete them. And we're going to do all of this by working with the gradient background light that we've got here, because it wraps all the way around the scene. So let's just go to the value ramp and open that up. Here it is. And we can start double clicking to add new points on this graph. Double clicking. Now, when you're working with this graph, I always turn on log. What log does is that it means what you see in the graph matches much better in what you see in the view, because actually this value ramp here is linear, but when you see that in the view that has the LUT applied, you get something more washed out with the darker areas being lifted. So to compensate, if you turn on the log, what you see in here is much more of what you get in the view, and it gives you the control you need over that. So we'll make this light a bit brighter. Because we want it to be nice and bright on that edge. Okay, and then we'll carry on adjusting and adding points. I'm going to make the mode here for this graph here Bezier, and then we get nice smooth transitions as well between our points. So just adding points and just controlling them. Okay, so you can see this part here is controlling this part here, and then this part of the ramp here, we've got the black bit in the middle, and then we've got the fall off there. So we can just adjust the points until we get an amount of brightness here that we're looking for. Now, at this point, I'm going to actually put a background behind the render. So I'm going to get a light here. I'm going to change the light paint mode to rim. So when I drag and drop this light, it will be positioned behind the watch. So that looks pretty good. So then I'll turn the mode back to reflection. I'll go back to my gradient, and I think we can now make this a bit brighter so that we're almost going to white on this highlighty bit here. So just boost the brightness with the plus. Okay, so that's slightly too far, but I'll make the other adjustments in the ramp itself. So we'll just bring that down, just off of white, bring that down a bit. Okay, so that's looking good to me. So we'll okay that. I'm happy with that. Now the next thing is that the face of the watch is looking really washed out, and we want to knock that back. So I'm going to create a soft round light. I'm going to click in the middle of the face to position that light. I'm going to change its softness by double clicking to add another point to the ramp. Here, the alpha ramp, which now I've got this control now for the softness of that. And then I'm going to change the color to red so we can see actually how it's affecting this view, and I'll solo the light. So now we can scale this down, and as we scale it up, start to see how that's reflecting. So if we went too big with this light, it's going to affect a lot of the strap and it's going to go all over the place. So if I actually start to bring this down, this light on its own, we want it to basically control the illumination on the face and not have much of an effect anywhere else. So I'm happy with the size of that. So if we make the brightness on that 0, it will be black. It doesn't matter what color it is. And then if we change the blend mode to over and we unsolo that, we've now, if I turn that off, turn it back on. So at the moment, I'm not actually killing enough of the light. So I'm actually going to scale that up a bit more. So it just knocks back the brightness there. I mean, if I take it to an extreme, that's really knocked it back. But obviously I don't want it that big. So let's just take it back down again. Okay, that's definitely made a difference. If I turn that off, you can see how bright the face is. It's very washed out. Turn that back on, and now that's just dulled that down a little bit, which looks nice. Right, so to bring back a bit of interest in the face and try and make these gold hands and the numbers come alive a bit, let's get another light and drag and drop that on the face. So we'll drag this one, drop it onto there. We'll solo it so we can see the effect it's having and how we can position it. Okay, so we'll make it so we can see here that we've brightened up this area, and then we've got this nice graduation across the face where this part is looking at something dark, this part is looking at the light. So it's created some interest in the face and a little bit of shadowing because it's not perfectly centered. So I quite like that, makes the face a bit more three-dimensional. So if I unsolo that, I'm actually going to take down the brightness of the background a little bit. That's much better, because basically it was just that little bit too bright. Okay, now if we want to get a little bit more intensity in these areas here, I'm actually going to make a soft light. I'm going to click on the bezel, but then I'm going to change the blend mode to amplify. And then I'm going to scale that up a little bit. And if I increase the brightness, that is actually going to boost the brightness at that point there. So if I duplicate that light and I put one here, we've now got these two lights that are nicely creating a boost. Now it's a bit too much, so I'm going to do, say, 150 value on that, and 150 on that one. But it shows you how you can use lights with the blend mode amplify to kind of boost the lighting that's beneath. If I just use the blend mode add, the light sits on top, and you can see that that black line doesn't remain, which is why I needed to use amplify. Okay, I'm going to take the brightness of this light up a tad. Right, now it's time to bring the strap alive. So let's make a soft round light. Let's go into the graph and turn on log. And then click on the strap up here. Boost the brightness and we'll scale it up. Turn it down a little bit so it's not too blown out. And then we'll duplicate that light. Control D, and then click on the bottom of the strap, and we'll turn it down a little bit so it's not quite as strong as at the top. Okay, so I can at any point resize the render in this view. So if I click this button here, the render gets resized to my view size. So if I scale that down like that, resize, I was losing a bit of resolution actually in the if I go to render view settings, Cinema 4D Redshift 100%, I'm just going to Redshift will always scale the IPR to the size of the window. So if I want a better quality IPR view, I'll just up the size of it in Cinema 4D and then come back to HDR Light Studio, and then we'll fit that to the view, and now we've got a much better quality, higher resolution render that's streaming from Cinema 4D, which is good when I'm making these final decisions on the lighting. So looking at this, I feel like the watch is going slightly too dark at the bottom here and up here. So I'm going to go to my gradient, edit it, and we're going to just lift the values at the ends here, and then just lift the values on those points there. Now I also feel on this bezel and on this bezel we could boost the brightness a little bit, so I'm going to make another soft light and just click on that bezel, duplicate it, Control D, and then click on that bezel to just boost it, which is really nice. The reference image, I'll just open the reference image. There we go. So we've got the same kind of thing going on. We've got this graduation of the light. And when I compare it against the reference image, I am actually feeling that this graduation, it does need to be even a little bit brighter. It's going a little bit too flat, a bit too dark. So I'm glad that I looked at the reference image there. So I'll close that. We'll edit the gradient again. And we'll just bring up that brightness a bit more. And on that end, pull it up. Great. So I think that lighting is done now. I'm happy with that. So what we'll do to finish the process is we'll press the HDR button. We'll browse to the folder where this project is. And we'll call this Lighting Final. And then the resolution for the map will be 5000 pixels. And then we'll render that final lighting design. Excellent. Now Cinema 4D and Redshift has been updated to use that map. So we can now stop HDR Light Studio and save our Cinema 4D project, because the current state of the lighting design in HDR Light Studio is stored in Cinema 4D. So if we wanted to edit it later, we can start up the connection again and edit it. But at this point in time, this is just standard lighting for Redshift created by HDR Light Studio using HDR texture on disk that we just generated. So now if I wanted, I could render the final image. So we can go to Render, Edit Render Settings, and then we'll change this to a 3000 by 3000 pixel render. Excellent. And then we'll just render this to the picture viewer. Okay, so the render's finished, and here's the final result. So if you want to follow along with this tutorial, you can download the scene from our website at Lightmap and enjoy having a play with HDR Light Studio. Thank you for watching.